All right, I am going to call to order the City of San Carlos City Council successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency Housing Authority regular meeting for October 9th. We have no 2449 teleconference requests, so if you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Are there any changes to the order of the agenda?
Nothing from staff this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Nothing. Anyone else here? Okay. How about we came back from closed session. Greg, is there anything to report from closed session?
There is no reportable action from closed session.
Okay. So we'll move on to item 6, which is presentations to present a proclamation recognizing October 2023 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I will be presenting that to Donald McGilligan from Cora, a board member of Cora. We've got a helper with you. We're designating October 2023 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So whereas more than 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men and 1 in 2 transgender individuals experience some form of physical or sexual violence and or stalking by their intimate partner in their lifetime. And whereas the marginalization of certain groups in society, including undocumented individuals, transgender individuals, and people living with disabilities, increases their vulnerability to domestic violence, and whereas there were 7,945 requests for service through the Community Overcoming Relationship Abuse, CORA's 24-hour crisis hotline and law enforcement referrals last year, and 1,291 adults and teens received community education on healthy relationships and the impact of intimate partner abuse. And whereas in San Mateo County, 112 adults and children were provided emergency shelter, and 79 households were provided longer-term rental assistance to escape their abusers last year. And whereas 479 adults and children received therapy to help them with domestic violence-related trauma, and Cora fielded 1,973 requests for legal assistance, whereas the City of San Carlos, as part of the San Mateo County, recognizes the critical need for county-wide services in order to support our residents, and whereas intimate partner violence continues to be among the most underreported crimes, and the City of San Carlos is committed to eliminating all forms of intimate partner abuse. And whereas although progress has been made towards preventing and ending domestic violence and providing support to survivors and their families, important work remains to be done. There is still a need to provide awareness and understanding of domestic violence and its causes, and to understand the complexity of violence as perpetrated within communities and against communities, and the fear of many survivors to report to law enforcement. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Adam Rack, Mayor of the City of San Carlos, on behalf of the entire City Council, hereby designate the month of October 2023 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month to raise awareness about and encourage all residents of San Carlos to do their part to help rid our community of intimate partner abuse. Presented this 9th day of October 2023.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, Cora serves one of the most most vulnerable parts of our community, and that is survivors of domestic violence. Thank you, Mayor Rack, for running through some of those statistics showing what an important role Cora serves in our community through hotline services, legal services, providing housing assistance to victims of domestic violence so they can transform their lives. And they can't do it alone. The City of San Carlos has been a great partner in the fight to end domestic violence, so I want to thank you for everything you've done, and we look forward to working with you in the future. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Donald. Do any of my colleagues have any comments? Okay, is there any public comment on this item?
I did not receive any public speaker slips.
Okay. All right. We'll move on to item 7, council communications and announcements. Councilmember Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few things, if you'll indulge me. First of all, I'd like to thank Crystal Mui, our city clerk, for her handling of a very difficult situation and unexpected situation in our last meeting. She's really a true professional, and we are fortunate to have her as city clerk. And sticking with the city theme, I also want to thank our Public Works Director, Steve Machida, and his crew for getting the light in at the Hawk Light at Belmont and El Camino. That's been a long time coming, and it's going to greatly improve public safety. And I just want to thank all of you for your diligence in that effort. And also, thanks to Amy Newby and her entire Public Works, or excuse me, Parks and Recreation staff. There was Lauren Schneider and Wendy Scatino and so many people that were involved. I probably shouldn't just single out a few. Everybody was involved. It was a great weekend, good weather. I think a lot of people had a good time. I personally served a lot of wine to people. But I just think all the city staff that were involved in putting on that event deserve to be congratulated. And then finally, I just want to clarify some of the comments I made at the last meeting regarding the Northeast specific plan. Prior to our last council meeting, as a member of the council subcommittee, I had reviewed the preliminary Northeast specific plans, and they included, obviously, the housing options that were presented at our last meeting. During that meeting, the questions were asked about housing piece that they concerned me, and I subsequently spoke with staff and worked through my concerns. So as a result, I am once again comfortable with exploring all the housing options for the Northeast area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Collins. Councilmember McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to second Councilmember Collins's kudos to staff for the Art and Wine Fair. I think it was just a lovely weekend. Lots of people. I know many members of our staff were down there. City manager was down there walking around too. So I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you to all of the volunteers in our city who helped make it so successful as well. And then I just wanted to remind the community that this weekend, northbound 101 will be closed, if I'm not mistaken, and the city has been posting on our social media about the detour route that will be coming up Industrial over to Holly, and there will be a lot of traffic down there. So please consider avoiding that area this weekend and pay attention to the city's news outlets for more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember McDowell. Councilmember Venkatesh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just also want to say thank you to the Parks and Recs. I saw all of you over there and working so hard, and everything was so well organized, from the recyclables to the compost to the trash, and the police officers were there patrolling, and I just want to say thank you. It was a great event.
Okay. I just want to also echo my thanks for all the work that went into both the Park and Rec team and all the volunteers in the community who came to really make this a great weekend, because it takes the whole community to do it. And I want to wish Stephen and his team good luck with the northbound closure and addressing the traffic, and our sheriff's department, but also thank you for the work on the southbound as well. Did you have other?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
No, you're fine.
One question I wanted to ask. Jeff, we had some correspondence from the east side about that closure. Can I assume that they've all been sufficiently noticed that this is going to be closed again, and they understand?
Yep, I think the whole world has been as noticed as they can be on this. And obviously, as 2 weeks ago when the southbound direction of 101 was closed, things could change on the fly. And if they do, we will put that information out as well as we get it and receive it from Caltrans.
Okay, I'm going to move on to item 8, which is the consent calendar. These are items typically voted for in mass. Do any of my colleagues wish to pull anything from the consent calendar? Okay, anyone from the public? Okay, I'll take a motion. Mr.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve City Council consent calendar items A through J.
Second.
Okay, Crystal, you have a motion and a second. Can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember McDowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh? Vice Mayor Dugan?
Yes.
And Mayor Rack.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, moving on to item 9, which is a public hearing, consideration of the below actions for the Life Science Research and Development Project at 841 Old County Road, APN 046-1330, 133-160, 046-134-050, 046-134-060, 046-135-010, 046-135-020, 046-135-030, 046-135-040, 046-182-100, 046-182-110, excuse me, and 046-182-150. There are 3 items associated with this. One is to adopt a resolution adopting a mitigated negative declaration and associated mitigation monitoring and reporting program. 2, to introduce an ordinance amending the zoning map to change the zoning of the site from IH heavy industrial zoning district to PD planned development zoning district and approving the associated planned development plan, and 3, introducing an ordinance approving a development agreement with the Sobrato Family Foundation. Lisa Costa-Sanders.
Thank you. Good evening. Lisa Costa-Sanders, Principal Planner. I'll be giving the staff presentation this evening. So the Planning and Transportation Commission at their June 7th meeting approved certain entitlements and recommended that the City Council approve the negative declaration, the Plan Development Zoning and Plan Development Plan, and the development agreement. The City Council heard this item at its August 28th meeting, conducted the public hearing, received public input, and requested that the developer expand its offered community benefits. So the item again is for Plan Development Zoning and Plan Development Plan to allow for 2 new research and development life science buildings, total square footage of 339,000 square feet, and includes 2 levels of below-grade parking as well as streetscape improvements. One aspect of the original community benefit offer included public access to the front 5,000 square feet of the outdoor plaza, and that's shown in the dashed red area. And then the developer had reserved the remaining 12,000 square feet of that central courtyard area for tenant use only, and that's outlined in the blue area. Based on feedback received at the August City Council meeting, the applicant has redesigned the courtyard space and offers the entire 17,000 square foot area as available for public use. The redesigned space also includes games for public use and can be used exclusively by community groups and nonprofits 6 times a year. You see here the redesign results in a much more open courtyard appearance, especially from the Old County Road frontage. And this is another view from Old County Road of the main entry with the welcoming large seating areas and the trees. And then there's the barbecue area towards the middle with seating. And this is a view from the interior, showing some of the games that might be available. And I'll let the developer go into more detail for you on the redesign. Another view of the interior courtyard space. We find the project to be in compliance with many of the big moves outlined in the Eastside Innovation District Plan. Specifically, they will be implementing and building the Discovery Path along Branston Road, also implementing the Eastside Connect with the bicycle and pedestrian master plan along Old County Road, Activity Hub with a new cafe with outdoor seating area, this publicly accessible plaza space that we just reviewed, and contribution towards community benefits. Just to recap the full breadth of the community benefits, so as I indicated, it's construction of the Discovery Path along Branston, cafe with patio seating, and they've included 4 dedicated parking stalls that would be available for visitors for the cafe, and that's at that surface parking to the rear of the site. Full public access to the 17,000 square foot courtyard area. Nonprofit and community organizations may utilize the courtyard for events 6 times per year, please strike the up to. I'll explain that in a minute. Public parking on nights and weekends of 46 spaces at that rear of the building, as well as 2 EV charging stalls, as well as financial contribution. So at your dais, you have an outline of revisions to the development agreement. This is for the exhibit. Greg, do you recall which exhibit that is? It's the POPA agreement. And it talks about the temporary closure and maintenance of events. It had in there at least 6 times, and we're saying 6 times. So that's how many times it will be available at request of community organizations. And then we also have the approval shall not be unreasonably withheld, denied, or conditioned. So we are recommending that development agreement be approved this evening with that change. Exhibit E. B as in boy, thank you. And it's the POPA easement agreement. The outline of the monetary community benefits that was outlined in the last meeting. So in addition to these monetary contributions and credits, the applicant is requesting credit for the public parking, and that's again nights and weekends, recognizing their additional expense, including their insurance, security, and maintenance. And this is in addition to the original contribution. So now it is totaling, originally it was $7 million, and now we're at $769. The project's also required to pay city impact fees. The exact amount will be determined at the building permit submittal phase, but this is an estimate based on the plans before you this evening. The public notice was mailed to all property owners and occupants within 300 feet of the site, as well as published in the newspaper on September 28th. And we have received 2 comment letters in support of the project, one from the Chamber of Commerce, San Mateo County, and one from SAMCETA. And the Planning Commission recommends the City Council introduce the mitigated negative declaration, mitigation monitoring and reporting plan, adopt that. Introduce the ordinance rezoning the site to planned development zoning and adopting the associated plan development plan, as well as introduce the ordinance approving the development agreement. The Planning Commission approved the design review certificate, the tentative parcel map, transportation demand management plan, grading and dirt haul certificate, and all of those approvals were subject to the approval of the plan development. That concludes staff's presentation. The applicant also has a brief presentation. We'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Great. Thank you, Lisa.
Good evening, City Council. We're very thankful to be in front of you again tonight and appreciate our project being continued to this council meeting and our team given a chance to make some significant enhancements to the project. At the last meeting, we heard your overall support for our project design, but certainly walked away understanding that clearly you wanted to see more on-site community benefits consistent with the East Side Vision Plan. Since that meeting, our team has been able to rethink some of our original design approaches to create more public enhancements directly benefiting both the residents and workforce in this neighborhood. In an effort to respond to this feedback, we have revisited our proposal and have made some significant additions to our project design and community benefits in order to fully comply with the goals of this vision plan. 2 of those goals were publicly accessible open space within development projects, as well as shared parking. We are really excited about these changes and do not believe they compromise the project for our tenants while also providing a large, redesigned 17,000 square foot open courtyard for both tenants and public to enjoy, with games, an outdoor kitchen with trellis, and some planted rooms to serve as more quiet work environment. We look forward to hearing your comments and hope that you will be able to advance this project tonight. Our partnership with the City of San Carlos is important, and we hope that you will be able to receive our proposal with enthusiasm. I'll turn it over to Mark with Studios Architecture to walk through more of the details. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the City Council, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Staff, thank you for your presentation. I'm Mark Fenninger with Studios Architecture, and tonight I would like to go over some of the modifications that we have made to the design after we heard you last time. Just real quickly, wanted to remind everyone that the project did go through a process of community outreach and took input from the community and also our team. But tonight, what we wanted to do was really highlight how we have changed the design based on the comment and feedback that we got last time. And in green at the bottom, really this is, we heard last time the importance of really rethinking the plaza in the center, specifically the significant portion of it that was intended to be fenced off and for private use, and how could we think about that as becoming a real community benefit. And then associated with that is how can we really think about the parking that we have as in a way that could support any retail that could be on the site. Last time we reviewed with you how the project was responding to the big ideas. As you know, the East Side Innovation District laid out a number of big moves. And when we talked to you last time, we reviewed all of these, which were intentionally designed into the project. And after our meeting, and we heard from you, we thought hard about, there wasn't a big move that we had missed and that you had reminded us of, and that is how can we think of getting this idea of public parking or shared parking into the plan, which is now part of our design. And I'll go over that in a little bit. I do want to just quickly remind you of the project site, where it is located on Old County Road, right between the future Minkoff and Alexandria development. And we also just wanted to just start by reminding you of just some of the design principles about how we felt it was really important to take a project which when we started was a project which filled up most of the site. There wasn't much open space, largely due to the parking that we had to fit. And we took what was originally several stories of above ground parking and we put that below grade. What that achieved was the ability to achieve one of the real goals of the project, which is this open courtyard in the center, which we see as the heart of the project. Now that does require going down 2 stories. It does require remediating the soil, and taking care of that. But what it creates is an open space in the center, and it creates the ability to have this terraced plazas that look down, all while providing an electric building that has PV panels on top. We're intentionally, we have EV parking, bike parking, drought-tolerant plants, and the project intends to hit LEED Gold. When we look at the actual plaza design itself, there's several things we did. One of the things we did was, it may be hard to see, but right behind the little grove of trees at the front, there was a row of trees and a fence, and we turned that all 90 degrees as a way of putting the trees on the side as a way of creating a more visual gateway into the site. And what this did was it made not only the plaza more inviting, but it also created shaded areas at the side so that the central plaza now has a variety of spaces and rooms that people can use, both open space where you see the grass and the deck in the middle, but at the sides wanting to provide shade. So during this times of the year when it gets hot, there's shade for people. As Lisa said, the total area of the plaza is 17,000 feet. And we've intentionally tried to think about what type of uses we would have, which I'll go over now visually. So these are the views of Old County Road. And we still wanted to have some sense of gateway, but as I said, we removed a row of trees so you can now visually see in, but we really wanted to keep this terrace deck up front as a way of activating Old County Road and hopefully creating a place for people to sit right on Old County. But as you can see by removing the trees, you can now visually see into the site and are invited into the site, into the central terrace, central courtyard. Now, this is in the central courtyard with several views that rotate around the central barbecue and cooking area, and trying to provide a variety of spaces that people can use, both decks with outdoor seating, as well as green space and lawn space for people to sit on and have activities and games. Part of the redesign is rethinking of this parking lot in the back. And in response to your comments, we're now making what's in the light shaded green, the entire parking lot is available on off business hours on nights and weekends. And then also permanently dedicating the dark green spots for the retail use as a way of making sure there is parking spots located directly nearby. We've also made sure that there is an EV charging station. So if any of the people visiting the retail are using an electric vehicle, that they have a place to plug in and recharge. That summarizes the changes. We're excited to be back in front of you, and we actually took your comments to heart, and we think by making this a more public space and a more open courtyard, it's actually improved the project. So thank you for your comments, and we would enjoy your questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Do any of my colleagues have any questions for either the Sobrato team or for our city staff? Vice Mayor Dugan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, I'll just say to the Sobrato team, thank you for the effort and the redesign. And, I heard at one point that, you guys were, to some extent, following Alexandria's lead in helping to develop a life science center here. And I'll just say, I'm glad you recognize that that open courtyard will, in fact, serve your tenants well, because I believe that's the case. If you talk to Alexandria or see their designs, all their courtyards are very open, and the reality is it is mostly fellow life science professionals that will be spending time in there, and that I believe it will enhance the life science center there. So I appreciate the plan accommodating our concerns and our thoughts on that. And I do think that'll serve your tenants as well. So I did have a question about the ability of the public, or specifically nonprofits in our community, to reserve it. We have a couple other spaces in town similar to that, like Skyway and such, that I think they're at least once a month, 12 times a year. How did you guys come to 6 times a year? That, for an organization like the Sobrato Foundation, I guess I just was kind of surprised that there was some need to limit that in that way. Was there a particular concern about nonprofits using this space after hours?
No, I mean, I think that it was a negotiation with staff, and we thought that 6 times a year seemed like a reasonable place to end up. We have a lot of experience with closing down multi-tenant office buildings because we built one for ourselves in downtown Mountain View. So we manage now the ability to rent out the courtyard to our tenants in our building, and we saw that this would be manageable in a similar way with the nonprofit community or with any sort of organizations that would want to rent this out. But in an effort to not burden our property management too much, we propose six times.
Got it. And in general, if you had a couple more requests than that in a year, would your organization likely look favorably upon that, or is it kind of, boy, we were forced to do this and 6 is the number?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then a question for staff on community benefits. And I just want to make sure I understand how these credits work. So I'm looking at slide 13, that it adds up community benefits to $7 million, and then a public parking credit. And so is the public parking credit, is that the only new credit here since okay. And did that additional $690,000, did that come out of something else in
Deducts, it's additive, so it's on top of.
It was additive, so we're doing that for illustration purposes, not necessarily recalculating anything, is that?
Right, and it recognizes their commitment to that space and also their expenses relating to additional insurance, property management, maintenance, and security.
Got it.
Then it lets other developers know what you're looking for.
Yeah. And then how, like the cafe credit, I guess that has been here through the project, but I've just thought about it a little bit more. So number one, these numbers are they derived by our economist? Is that a joint effort? Do both sides have an economist? Like, how do we get to a number like a cafe is $555,000 of public benefit?
Sure, so I don't know, Jim Simon's here this evening if you wanted to, thank you.
Hi. The way the process works is that the applicant in this case provides a proposal, and we looked at it and discussed those things. That was one of the recommendations that they came to, is that dollar amount. The cafe itself is probably at a $1.7 million space in terms of the value of the building. This space is going to have some difficulty leasing up at first, with obviously the activities surrounding it still being very much under construction. So I think the belief is that, largely a tenant improvement allowance, which would incentivize the tenant to move in, plus some discounted rent, is probably going to get you to about that amount of money.
I see. So I guess in calculating a number like that, there is, that is value to the building, right? I mean, the building will be leasing that space for rent, and obviously the tenants of that building will also be enjoying having a cafe in the building. So is that like this 555,000 number is sort of like a net number, like you said, 1.7, and then 555's like, the additional benefit to just the community and not to the building?
Right. I mean, essentially what you're saying is, in order to get a tenant into that space, you're going to have to incentivize someone to move into it, especially with Alexandria not even yet being there or anything like that. So, that typically will come in the form of, two things: discounted rent and then, tenant improvement allowance. That's what we're talking about, that component.
Got it. And that was their number, but their calculations made sense to you.
I don't know how they calculated it, but that's how we looked at it. So
I see. And so, but essentially you agreed with it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then, but just to be clear, so if we said no cafe, we would get another $555,000 into one of our funds. Is that how this works?
Well, I think that would have been our negotiating position had the council and subcommittee not been interested in that, yeah.
Got it.
No, the negotiation would have gone, we'd have to go.
I understand that, and I'm not looking to open that up. This is more general question for my benefit. I wasn't on that subcommittee, and I'm glad there's a cafe there, so thank you for explaining it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Dugan. And Councilmember Venkatesh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for coming back to the table. I appreciate all the thought that went into this. It looks much better. I guess I just had a question regarding the 6 events, because we do need an event space in San Carlos. We're trying to do an event next month, and we couldn't find a space for it. So how exactly does that work? Is it something we negotiate? Is it, like, how do we secure the place if we were asking for an event? Will you come through planning? Would you come through Sobrato?
I'm not sure, Lisa, I actually have an answer for how logistically we would do the booking of the site. So is it something, Greg, you can maybe speak to what we outlined in the DA? Okay.
Yeah, in the agreement, it looks to me that the owner, the tenant, and the city might be where the person wanting the location would go, and then it's not supposed to be any charge, of course, for the 6 events.
So yeah, I mean, I would say that it would be booked through our property management, use of the kitchen, all that sort of thing. It was under our maintenance.
Is that something we can negotiate beforehand?
Is what something we could negotiate beforehand?
Events in beforehand, the 6 events?
I would think
Meaning
they'd probably
before-
be scheduled out. At a certain point, once the property is built, that the property manager would get requests, and then it could be scheduled out pretty far in advance, I would think, once people request the space.
I think what Councilmember Venkatesh is asking is that the process getting a little more solidified, because it seems like we don't really have a process in place for how or what that might look like.
I'll answer that.
Is that more accurate? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'd be happy to work with the developer and the property management team as the building gets built to make sure that that policy is in place and that we can refer our nonprofits to the right folks to look at doing bookings for the space in the future.
Thank you. Just one more question. So between August and now, the benefits include the public parking, the public access, and the event space, correct? Those three?
Between now and
The added benefits are the event space. between August and
Yes,
now?
we see it as the shared parking, the entirely publicly accessible courtyard, and the marginal amount of EV stalls that we can offer on the surface level, which we have a dual plumbed head.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember McDowell.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you very much to Sobrato for your work in coming back with some revisions. I appreciate that. I have 3 questions. I did want to seek some clarification on. No problem. I just wanted to make sure you're ready for my question.
I missed your introduction.
I haven't asked
there.
it yet.
Okay.
I'm getting there. So with regard to recycled water, could you talk a little bit about what the plans are on the project? Is it purple pipe ready? Are you using gray water? I saw in one of your slides that you did call out that the East Side Innovation District Vision Plan, that you were seeking to be in compliance with that big move.
I'll let Mark answer that because we did hear that this came up as a question.
Thank you.
Yeah, so to answer your question directly, the project does not currently have dual plumb piping for purple piping, largely because the city doesn't have the infrastructure in place to connect it to. That being said, it is relatively easy, and we could easily add it if the infrastructure gets in place before the project's put into construction. With regards to the question about the plants, what we did when we looked at the planning is we kind of tried to take a big step back and think about what's really critical when you think about just the environment at the high level. And our landscape architect said, as we were talking about it, it's actually probably the best thing to do is start by reducing your water demand first. And so what he did is he spent a lot of energy to get the vast majority of the plants, over 75% of our plants are what's called low water usage plants. So these are plants that really do not require a lot of water. So we're not putting a typical demand. To answer your question, we don't have a gray water system, so that the dual plumbing system, but we did spend a lot of time to make sure that we would drastically reduce the amount of water that any landscaping would need. Have I answered your question?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, I'm going to ask a follow-up. I think that, thank you. I guess I was confused because on slide 5, it says dual pipe system could allow for future recycled water use. So what you're saying is, if I'm understanding correctly, there is no dual pipe system installed currently, but you could go back and add that later.
We could. Currently, the city does not have the infrastructure potential for it.
Yes, we're working towards that. Is that something that is in our development agreement, that would be added later? Okay. All right, well, I would be interested in somehow mentioning that the applicant is willing to install that later, but I can leave that up to my colleagues as well. My second question is on the parking, and I noticed in one of your slides, it showed the last, let's see, what slide is this? Slide 12, the 4 spaces, oh, there it is. So those 4 spaces, so the public would go and park there and then walk through the courtyard and around to the cafe. My question is, why are those 4 spaces there and not on the far right so that people would just walk up Commercial Street to the cafe?
I think pragmatically, they're there because we thought that would be the closest to the courtyard, and if anyone going to the cafe, if they were going to sit in the courtyard afterwards, it would be near the car. So that was the logic behind it.
Okay.
I'm not sure there's really a magic about whether they're on the left or the right from an absolute requirement point of view. We were just trying to show 4 spots that we thought would be the most convenient for use of the courtyard as well.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, if I'm a member of the public and I'm driving on Old County or Commercial, those 4 spots seem kind of hidden from someone driving in and recognizing that those are public parking spots. So I would be concerned about how people would find those. And then are those going to be restricted to 1-hour parking? And how are we going to make sure that employees are not parking there and taking those from the public?
I would think it would need some signage that would be clear that this is parking for the retail and for that reason and not for the general tenants.
Right, and how would that be enforced?
Signage that would probably need to be shown in the building permit at the time of building permit.
How would you be checking to see if tenants are staying there all day?
It's not the most satisfactory answer. You know, it's something that we deal with in our multi-tenant headquarters in Mountain View all the time, which is that we have a Wells Fargo building that shares that with us. And they have a bunch of dedicated stalls on the ground floor that all we have as leverage is a tow sign, you know, that says that you're not allowed to park there longer than this. And our property management team, you know, emails the building tenants all the time and says, we've noticed there's, you know, X BMW that's been parked in this retail for too long. So, you know, we manage it through basically hoping that the other multi-tenant office tenants in the building are going to police their parking per the rules of their lease.
Okay. Yeah, I would imagine it would impact, you know, whoever's leasing your cafe. They would want those spots to turn. I mean, we deal with that in our downtown. We want the spots to turn over fairly frequently. So,
and we're happy to work with Lisa to relocate those stalls if we think all of them make sense. Kind of along the building facade was my reaction, thinking if we wanted them to be less courtyard serving and more retail serving. So why don't we work with Lisa on relocating those if that's a concern?
I appreciate that. Thank you. And then, Mr. Mayor, if you'll indulge me, I think I have one more question.
Of course.
I guess I'll leave it. I appreciate the language being revised for the nonprofits, and you know, I too would second the request. That I'm glad that you're open to hosting more if it works out. And
yeah, and one thing my colleague Rob was mentioning, we can absolutely add to the DA what's called like some sort of booking system. We operate 4 nonprofit centers that have a variety of nonprofits that lease those spaces rent-free, and we have a booking system that, you know, allows for people to book conference rooms and common area space. So we could add some sort of similar system to be used for this courtyard.
yeah, thank you. That was my last question. Was I think that having the tenant and the owner and the city involved in the booking system is too many cooks in the kitchen. The Skyway Center, they just have one person and she books the room, and the city's not involved in that, and that's part of our development agreement. So I think we get out of that and be mindful of just making it easy on the nonprofits to book the space. So thank you.
All right, I don't see other questions. I had a couple. Most of my questions were answered. I guess I would just second Councilmember McDowell's sort of request that we can somehow sort of memorialize the purple pipe request, given that we would like to see that coming into our community, and if you're willing and able to do that, that would be appreciated. Parking control got, and I guess one question on parking is in terms of accessible parking. I don't know what's over there in terms of, you know, if you're going to have tenants coming in, is there any way to, and maybe that's something that we can, as a city, on the commercial street, put an accessible spot near the cafe or something, which might even be better than something else. I think that'd be something I'd be just interested in understanding how we're making sure that we're, you know, the area is accessible.
So accessible parking, pretty much anybody with a placard could park there, so it could be retail customers as well. And I do not...
They're not in the retail spot?
If they have...
I'm just wondering if there's, like, in that parking lot, is there an accessible parking spot in there?
If you could, I'm sorry, if you see the hatched lines with the little...
Those are all accessible parking?
Those are all accessible parking.
Okay, and those would be open to the general public because that's the way the law is written in terms of accessible parking. Okay,
Correct.
Great. That's perfect then.
But I did want to clarify that I do not believe we're going to have street parking on Commercial Street, just because of the lanes, the bikes, and the right turns. So I just wanted to make that note.
That's fine. All right. Thank you, Lisa. And then, and the courtyard, in terms of the activities, you've got sort of those, say, games and other stuff. Is that there sort of on the weekends too, if someone wanted to go sit in those cool chairs that you showed or other things like that? Is that something that's sort of accessible to the public on a Saturday afternoon or something? Or is that sort of only while there are people in the office?
I mean, details still to be worked out, and, you know, problems could happen with property management where things need to change, but our plan with creating publicly accessible places is to make this stuff fixed so that it can't be stolen, and in a way that it could be there, you know, 24 hours a day.
Sounds good. All right, I don't have, I think most of my questions were answered by my colleagues. I think Vice Mayor Dugan has a hand up.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. And I know, there's details to be worked out, et cetera, but on this parking, could we go back to that parking slide? Yeah, just, it seems like, we really want parking for this publicly accessible plaza. So, perhaps we're just talking about 2-hour parking or 1-hour parking, not retail parking. Is that how we should better understand that? Is that?
Well, I think at your last meeting, there was some concern that there wasn't any designated retail or cafe parking. And so in response to that, we looked at the square footage of the space and determined that 4 spaces were appropriate for the retail. And then for the public use of it, it's likely people would be walking or biking into the site to use that. So, we're right at the undercrossing that connects to downtown, so it's very accessible there at Commercial Street. There's a easily available bicycle parking on the site, and then the entire rear parking would be available at nights and weekends. So we hadn't negotiated some additional public parking for use of the space during the daytime hours.
But as the principal planner, how do you think, are you recommending we designate all this for retail parking, or should we consider any parking needs for this publicly accessible plaza?
Again, I think it's very easily accessible, other modes of transportation, and would more likely.
Biking there, that's our.
Biking or walking.
That's our plan of record as a city, is we're going to have to bike there.
I think most of the people that would be using it during daytime hours may be coming from another local space. And then people that would be using it off hours would be able to park in that rear parking area.
Okay. Does it make any sense to you as a planner to have that 2-hour parking?
That would be not enforced by the city, so it would be enforced by, because it's private parking, would need to be enforced by the property management.
In the same way that retail parking to be enforced, right? But what makes more planning sense in your perspective?
I mean, I think if they want to designate a few more spaces for the public use of the courtyard, that would probably be appropriate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you all set?
Yeah, just curious what my colleagues think about just retail-only parking and no parking for the plaza. It seems to me it should be workable for both, and so maybe a time limit makes more sense. And then I'll just observe that the dual piping, what I heard the applicants say, I'm not overly concerned about that because we don't have that infrastructure, but what I heard the applicants say is it'd be easy to add that into the design before construction started. I don't believe that would be easy to add after the building's been completed, so I'm not sure my colleagues understood that. That's all.
Sure. Can you clarify that?
So, Vice Mayor, you are correct. It would be very difficult to add after the project's built. This is something that we would want to know. We have to include in the design of the construction documents that get submitted for permit. So, Vice Mayor, have I answered your question?
Yes, yeah, I just wanted to make that clarification.
I have a follow-up question, Mr. Mayor. So when your slide, this is your slide, slide 5, says integrate recycled water infrastructure, dual pipe system could allow for future recycled water use. That's not something that's in your plans? It's not something that you're doing right now? Why is that in the slide? I'm confused.
Well, I think the intent of it is it's something we could easily provide, but we're not aware of the city. The city does not have, at this time, that system in place.
I feel, okay, then maybe this is a question for Lisa. I feel like other projects that we've approved have been purple pipe ready.
I'm gonna jump. There have been projects that have chosen to do that on their own. So I think the question would become, because there's no requirement to do that. There's no code that we can point to saying that they must do that. So it would be coming out of your community benefit money you'd be negotiating with them to pay for that. And since there is no timeline on when that water may arrive, it seems unlikely that you'd probably be interested in doing that.
Understood. Okay. Thank you. I guess I'm getting hung up on our fourth big move of the vision plan says require new commercial development to be purple pipe ready. That is in the vision plan. So I don't know. I guess I would hear from my colleagues. I think we're too far down the path to probably make a change now, but it's something that maybe we should put a marker in for future projects, that compliance with the fourth big move of our vision plan is important.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember McDowell. I'm going to go to Councilmember Venkatesh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm trying to understand the parking. So there's underground parking, correct? And how many spaces are on the underground parking? Or is
748 total in 2 levels.
So could it be possible we have more parking spaces that are open?
In the garage?
Outdoors. Those 4 that we have currently, is it possible to have more spaces, or is that not negotiable? Just asking.
I don't know how exactly to answer this, but at the end of the meeting on the 28th, we kind of walked away and said, okay, right-sized for the amount of retail would be 4 spaces. And then it was our proposal to come back and say, we're willing to offer close to 50 stalls, after business hours as well to service that courtyard, which is when we really think that the public non-workforce users, like Lisa was saying, was going to use it. So we thought that this was a great compromise and adequate amount of parking for these 2 spaces. And I agree with the comment that the location of the retail spaces should probably be slightly closer, as close as possible to the retail, since it's already a little bit of a walk. But I think having, all 50 surface spaces on nights and weekends should be plenty to get us an activated courtyard that has adequate parking.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't see other questions. I had a couple of comments to make, but I just want to make sure we didn't ask if anyone wanted to make any disclosures on this. I know we did that the beginning of the project last time. If anyone felt they need to do that again, or they're comfortable with from last time. Councilmember Collins.
Yes, I did speak with Jeff Sobrato the other day about the changes that were made.
Okay. Councilmember McDowell.
Just to be super conservative, I met with, my disclosures remain the same as the meeting in August that I had met with the applicant, not recently, but maybe a month and a half ago. Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Venkatesh.
Same, I met during August.
Okay. I'll just say that I did meet with the applicants back before the previous meeting, but I have not met with them or had contact with them since. And it will not influence my decision today. Okay, I had a couple. Are there any other questions? And if not, we can take some public comment and then provide feedback and comment from the council. Okay, I don't see any other questions, so let's move to public comment. Crystal?
We have 1 speaker slip from Jeff Maley.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, Jeff, you got 2 minutes.
Thank you. First, I just want to thank the council for letting me speak tonight, and I wanted to thank the developers for coming with the plan. I think the building is pretty. I do like it. I do have a couple of concerns. One, and the biggest one is I'm not a huge fan of the mitigated negative declaration. I think it really brings a hit to the city's transparency. It comes across as more of a backroom deal than something the city and its residents are involved in. So, I would urge the council to reconsider that. Secondly, on the water and the purple pipe, I'm not sure why we would, it doesn't seem like it's too far to ask them to add it in, even if we have to negotiate with community funds. I would argue that more water and better water usage is more important than whatever's in those funds, at least in the long run. Building's going to be here for a long time. And lastly, I did notice on the mock-ups, the streets are really crazy wide, and they're really crazy wide sidewalks and a lot of trees, and I'm just wondering, how much that's actually going to reflect reality once the building is built. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, and you have a...
Thank you. And then Sonia Elks.
Hi, sorry I'm not dressed for the occasion. I just realized I couldn't call in my public comment, and I'm super disappointed about that, and I don't know how to arrange that. Maybe we could have like a frequent flyer, pre-check, TSA, like you can call, but maybe you screen new people or something? I don't know. Anyway, I want to echo Jeff's comment about the purple pipes being ready, purple pipe ready. I think you cannot have a bigger community benefit than adequate groundwater where you live. That's the second to oxygen. That's like a rate limiting a step that we have. So I think that's a really big community benefit. Also, as far as the, I didn't see all the presentation. I couldn't see the slides on my small phone. But I'm a big fan of wide sidewalks, and I highly recommend, since one of the biggest concerns about all of the development that's coming to the east side is the parking impact, and I mean the traffic impact. Parking's not an issue, traffic's an issue. I mean, they go together, I know that, but I'm saying traffic is where it becomes a bigger problem. And so, sustainable transportation, active transportation, bicycles, whenever you have paths, if you can demarcate where the moving transport devices ride versus where the pedestrians ride, if you can hit that up front and address that and not just ban all moving active transportation forms from being on these lovely big wide sidewalks, just separate them up front, and then you dramatically increase the number of people who want to be in this space on two wheels, who can visualize themselves biking, who see people that look like them, that could bike, that could. It makes a huge difference. I know it seems small maybe and very in the weeds, but I think it's important, and I think that's all my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Okay, Crystal, is there any other public comment?
There are no more slips.
Okay. I'll bring it back to the council if there's any comments on this. I'll start with...
Mr. Mayor, I move to close the public hearing.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Crystal, I have a motion and a second. Can you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Dugan,
Yes.
Councilmember Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember McDowell,
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh,
Yes.
and Mayor Rack.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we have closed the public hearing. I will now take any council, either if you have any last questions or if you want to make any comments at this point.
Staff would like to make a comment.
Okay.
I was speaking with the developer, and they would like to offer 3 spaces available for the public for access to the courtyard during daytime hours. I also wanted to just clarify that they will be separated bike track. So on Old County Road, it'll be separated and designated as bicycles only, as well as the Branston, just in response to the public comment. Really? They're also happy to offer the purple pipe plumbing.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay. Just so, at least so I can clarify, so we're talking about 4 for retail and 3 for public access. Is that what we're, is that? 7 total spots, however it's sort of ultimately to some. Okay, perfect, thank you. Just want to make sure I had that right. Appreciate that, thank you. All right, is there, I see Vice Mayor Dugan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This remains a good design, good for our east side, good public benefit. I certainly appreciate Sobrato's willingness to engage with us and work through the process. I appreciate the open courtyard and the cafe, and especially appreciate even here this evening going in with the 3 additional spots for a total of 7 during the day parking spots, and the purple pipe. Those were the principal concerns we just raised, and you've met them here on the fly. So I'm supportive of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Dugan. Councilmember Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to offer my thanks to the Sobratos for being flexible and listening to the concerns of the people that spoke tonight and of our council members. So I applaud you for your flexibility and being willing to make the changes.
Councilmember McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too want to thank our staff for the extra work on this, and to Serato. Thank you for your flexibility in bringing forward some new ideas. I also want to thank my colleagues who voted in favor of sending this back for additional negotiations. I think this project has come back stronger with more benefits for our community and in better compliance with our East Side Innovation District Vision Plan. I certainly appreciate your parking concessions, the opening of the central courtyard, especially for use of our nonprofits. I think that is a great fit, and I'm grateful for your purple pipe offer this evening. I also appreciate the environmental cleanup work that will be accomplished. I know that's very important to our community and our East Side neighbors, and the fact that a community cafe will be added to this area is also a benefit for us all. At the end of the day, development projects have to be a good fit for San Carlos, and it is our job as elected officials to push back when we think developers can do more. I know the good work that the Serato Foundation does in our county and in our region. I'm really looking forward to the Seratos putting roots down in San Carlos and making a long-term investment in our community. So I just think this is the beginning of a meaningful and lasting relationship that the Seratos can have in supporting our nonprofits here in San Carlos going into the future. So thank you.
Councilmember Venkatesh.
I just wanted to echo that and say thank you for collaborating with us and working with our plan just on today even. So thank you, and we look forward to partnering with you.
Okay, and I just want to again echo all the work that was done by both the Serato team and by staff, and appreciate my colleagues and the issues and questions that have been raised. I appreciate all the work that's been done on this, and I certainly feel it's a much improved project, and I'll be supporting it tonight. Okay, Councilmember Venkatesh.
Oh, I was just going to second.
Nope. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt Resolution 2023-125. A resolution of the City Council of the City of San Carlos adopting a mitigated negative declaration and the associated mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the 841 Old County Road project, including a total of 7 publicly designated parking spaces during daytime hours, and a dual pipe recycled water system.
Mr. Mayor, I think those added conditions would belong in the development agreement, and then the other thing you were talking about earlier regarding the booking system would go in the form of easement. So this is just the mitigated negative deck, but you can add those same conditions to the next items.
Terrific.
Okay. Do we need to amend that back to? Or are we okay?
Just for the record, I take it that that's being amended to just approve the mitigated negative
Yes,
deck.
I'm saying period after 841 Old County Road project with nothing added after.
Okay. Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Crystal, can you call the roll?
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember McDowell?
Yes.
And Mayor Rack?
Yes. Okay, motion passes 5-0. Someone want to tackle the next one?
I move to introduce ordinance number
1601.
1601, an ordinance of the City of San Carlos approving the 841 Old County Road Project Planned Development Plan and related zoning map amendment to rezone the project site from heavy industrial IH to planned development PD at 841 Old County Road, APNs 046-133-160, 046-134-050, 046-134-060, 046-135-010, 046-135-020, 046-135 046-135-030, 046-135-040, 046-182-100, 046-182-110, 046-182-150. And here is where I add, Greg, the 3 amendments, or the next one?
They're going to go on the next
The next one, okay. Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Crystal, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember McDowell?
Yes. Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
And Mayor Rack?
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move to introduce ordinance number
1602.
An ordinance of the City of San Carlos approving a development agreement with the Sobrato Family Foundation for the 841 Old County Road project, including a total of 7 parking spaces designated for public use during the daytime and a dual pipe recycled water system.
And the scheduling system.
And
The event scheduling system.
the event scheduling system? Okay, I mean, that was assumed.
What was passed out on the dais is some modified language for the
That's right,
temporary
the-
closure and maintenance and events, for maintenance and events. That would be a new language to the draft form of easement that's attached to the development agreement as Exhibit D. To add, and then you would be, I think what the proposal is to add a booking system to that amendment that's on the dais tonight. And then conditions to additional development agreement terms would be the purple pipe and the 7 parking spaces as described.
Okay, so in addition to the 7 total parking spaces and the dual pipe additions, I'm also adding this temporary closure for maintenance and events addendum as has been put in the public record, with a booking system maintained by the property management company overseen by the city. Okay.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Well, the city has to have some say.
Well, we give
Oversight.
consent to the 6 groups, I think.
We don't want to not have the city, right?
All right, is there a second? Ron, did you second? I did. There's a second, okay.
They chose not to do
So we
it.
have a motion and
I mean, there's some ultimate.
a second.
I'm sorry, I missed.
We have a
that
motion, a
second.
second by Councilmember Collins.
Okay.
Okay, Crystal, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember McDowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dugan?
Yes.
And Mayor Rack?
Yes. Okay, the motion passes 5-0. All right, we are moving on to,
Thank you, City Council.
all right, we're moving on to item 10, which is agenda setting. I don't see anything for agenda setting. We now have item 11, which is public comment. This is for items persons wishing to address the city council on matters not on the posted agenda may do so. Each speaker is limited to 2 minutes, and if there, we can limit it up to 2 minutes on that. And I know that there was some question that I've gotten some emails about comments on Zoom. This meeting there are no Zoom comments on this meeting. We will be reviewing our process and with the intention of coming back at a later meeting to permit Zoom comments.
I do not have any speaker slips for in person, but if you'd like to approach the podium, now's your chance.
Okay. I don't see anyone. Okay, with that, we are adjourned.